From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and Chief Digital Strategist at Stunning Digital Marketing. And today's show, I have my regular segment with Mr. Tim Nash, my security expert. And Tim and I are going to talk about two things today: the circle of trust and security and the upcoming WordPress 6.9 release. Sit back, relax, enjoy. The SDM Show is brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, the digital marketing concierge that helps you put all your marketing pieces together. We are your marketing experts. We are also your WordPress security experts and know how to lock down a website and protect yourself from bad actors. So contact us at Stunning Digital Marketing today. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here, and today I have my good friend from the UK, Mr. Tim Nash, and we're going to talk all about security. Hey Tim, how are you doing?
Hello. I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Before we get to today's topic, because we're just chatting, something just dawned on me. Do you know we had problems in North America recently of the Palestinian organizations hacking PA systems in airports? Did you hear about that?
No. Tell me about
In both,
this.
there was 3 airports in Vancouver and a couple in the States where they actually took over the PA system to be able to blast pro-Palestinian messages over the airways.
Oh, so was that like a localized attack that they had access via the airport? Or was that because the airports are on some sort of networked interface for their...
I'm not sure because nobody is saying anything citing national security.
Ah,
So,
that probably means it was over the network.
yeah, more than likely, but I thought I'd share that. And the other thing we need to establish at the time of this record, yesterday we know AWS went down. It was, let's establish right away, that was not a hack attempt. It was, sounds like a DNS problem, but I'm
Yeah, I
not
mean,
convinced it was that.
there's nobody's. I don't think all the statements from AWS has been very much like, "Oops, this was an oopsie issue, not
Yep.
a threat."
Yep.
And if it was a cyber, it's a good place to as a threat point. It is a really good target. If you were a bad actor and you wanted to cause max mayhem to the internet, there is only one data center that can do that, and that's sitting USA East 1.
Yep. And that's the one that had the problem. And then the third thing worth mentioning in the security space is if you're running Windows 10, you better do something because it went end of life last week on the 14th. So a couple things is: one, get on one of the free extended support plans for a year. 2, upgrade your machine. 3, switch that Windows operating system to Linux and solve your problem. Like, don't
Yeah, I
do
was going to
any.
go number 3. There are some really good, fantastic resources out there. There's a couple of distros that are basically set themselves up to be, hey, come swap to Linux. You can have
Yep.
a nice, easy life. If you want to keep using that hardware, then even with a support plan, free or not, there is still a limited life there on Windows.
Mhm.
So if you're happy with Windows 10 and there's reasons you can't go to Windows 11, give Linux a look.
Yep, no question. So on today's topic, the first thing I wanted to dive into is something you and I talk a lot about, and that's the whole circle of trust surrounding security. And the reason I think it's worth it is people always come to people like you and I and say, why do I trust you, first of all? Why should I trust this vendor? What plugins should I get for security and why? Which non-security plugins, i.e. contact form, should I get? And by the way, there's abundant of contact form spam out there again. That's why that comes to mind. Where do you sit on this whole circle of trust issue?
Well, as for why you should trust me or you, is they shouldn't. honestly, no one should trust the advice of random people on the internet. You should first go and actually speak to them, talk to them, find out their credentials if they have credentials. Credentials don't necessarily mean qualifications. Qualifications in the cybersecurity space is a very odd thing. There are such things as cybersecurity qualifications. There are also plenty of play to buy certificates you can get out there, but nothing will beat serious experience. And the way you find out about the experience is to talk to them, discuss what projects they've done in the past. They're obviously not going to be able to give you specific names of people, but they will often come recommended to you. Talk to the people who recommend them. Have they actually used these people? Or is it just a case of, hey, I saw Tim talking at a conference once. He must be good. Anybody can talk at a conference. That doesn't make you a specialist in a subject, but it gives you a nice, good starting point to go, I can recognize that person. Maybe I can talk to them. If they're not the right person, maybe they know somebody. So getting those sort of personal recommendations is probably more important to me than looking at someone's necessarily qualification.
No, I would agree with that. I would also agree that doing your homework matters. So, it's funny. I'll come back to Microsoft. Everybody hates Microsoft, but 75% of the business machines in the world on a desktop, what are they running? Microsoft. And why are they running Microsoft? Because people trust Microsoft to patch their security flaws, right? It's a bit of a thing.
I'll be honest, I don't hate Microsoft. I think I used to. Philosophically, I should do. I absolutely should hate Microsoft. And I'm pretty sure for many years I did, or at least didn't use Microsoft and would sneer at those who did in most outside of corporate environments. But the reality is Microsoft is a huge player in the security industry. It's a huge player, obviously, in computing. And they generally do a really good job at certain things. If you take something like something simple as antivirus, I'm amazed the number of people who will buy antivirus software for Windows, and I'll be there going, have you ever tried Microsoft Defender? And they're like, what's that? It's like, it's literally the built-in system.
Yep.
And it's really good.
I actually go third party, believe it or not, still. I always have, but I have nothing against the Microsoft built-in. It's the other 10% I want. And to be fair, Microsoft's a big player in the cloud game. We talk about the AWS outage yesterday. The only other two big players globally are Google and Microsoft, and maybe Oracle. Let's maybe a third, but they're the big ones, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the Azure platform itself is huge, which is the Microsoft's equivalent of AWS. But you also got to remember that Microsoft has, through Office 365, through all of the Office suite, all of that sort of stuff behind Active Directories and Microsoft servers infrastructure, it makes up a huge swathe of the web. And
it does.
If bits of Microsoft go down, you don't always notice it necessarily on websites, but you'll certainly notice it in email. The amount of spam drops. Maybe we should knock Microsoft out a few more times.
Yeah, it's true. And then let's dive into space. You and I are very familiar with the WordPress space. And we were kind of talking about saying there's been an epidemic of form spam lately. And I think, and there's been an epidemic with forms having security issues. And the one that comes to mind right away is Contact Form 7. It's had its share of problems. I strongly recommend that anybody worth it should probably not go near Contact Form 7, but that's my personal opinion. What do we trust in form packages?
Well, this is one of those things where all of them have had problems. There isn't a winner. There's just less of losers, I think. Contact Form 7, for example, has had a lot of very public problems, and the way they've handled it hasn't always been great. They are equivalent, the form equivalent to Revolution Slider, Rev Slider.
Yeah.
They're the sort of thing that they will turn up on examples of vulnerabilities inside plugins and be used as the case study for over and over again. Modern Contact Form 7, they do have a team behind them. They do try to patch quickly. They are pretty good at liaising now with security vendors and with researchers and people like myself. So that's give them a little bit of credit there. But there are a multitude of plugins. Some are really good. Some are owned by huge teams. Gravity Forms is a good example. Now, Gravity Forms is a premium plugin, has great support, but isn't immune to issues. It's only been in the last 3 months, they actually had a scenario where, because they are a premium plugin, they distribute Gravity Forms zip files themselves. Turned out that they themselves got hacked, and somebody was able to put malware into their zip files and cause chaos down the line. Now, that's could have happened to anybody, but it just shows that the big players have these issues too. And then you've got somebody like WS Forms, which is
our friend of Mark Westgard.
Yeah, and that literally it is Mark. But it's a good plugin. It's one that I've used in the past. But he is subject to the problem. He has the secondary problem, which is Mark might get hit by a bus. Actually, no, he's in America. They don't have buses. Mark might get hit by a car. Yeah. And that would be awkward. And the fact that the man can't go on holiday. He has to take a laptop with him wherever he goes. So then you go, can he become the vital part of my infrastructure? Now, for small projects, the answer might be yes. For your website, the answer might be yes. For your client's website, the answer might be yes. But there will be an organization that will go, hang on a minute. And this is the same for any type of plugin, not just for forms, needing to understand who's behind those plugins to allow you to properly risk assess. Is this a company? Is this a company? Is this an individual I can deal with? And if it's an individual, what is the risks associated with that? Can this plugin survive? Because WS Forms is not a premium plugin, I feel like I'm downing on Mark, and I love Mark, and the plugin is really good, and I use it. So I'm just emphasizing, but
me too.
To use Mark as an example, as an individual, what if he does have an issue? The plugin is a premium plugin. You cannot get it. It's not forked anywhere. It's not on the WordPress repository or AspirePress repository. So it would be very difficult for someone to take over in a scenario where Mark was no longer available to provide that level of support, be it he's gone on holiday, thankfully, or has been hit by a car. So it is a difficult question. And the answer possibly is there isn't a good answer, which is really frustrating for people because they want me to say, you should use WS Forms for this, you should use this version e-commerce plugin, you should use, and the answer is, it depends. You will have your own risk profile. You need to map to that risk profile. We can help you a little bit, but we don't need to know what the risk profile is in the first place.
I agree. And the other thing worth mentioning is we can take this discussion one more without turning this into a political show, because I do not want to do that, is WordPress.org from a security standpoint only has one point, WordPress.org, until some of these mirrored repositories have started to come up. And honestly, from a risk profile standpoint, I think that stops some bigger organizations from jumping into WordPress because they're looking at it saying, what happens if Matt gets hit by a bus? What happens if something happens? Because we all know WordPress.org is Matt Mullenweg's personal website. I hate that. I don't want to get political, but that's just the reality of it.
So this is the point where I shout out FAIR, which is an attempt to distribute and to do distributed plugins repos. At the moment, the idea behind FAIR is that there should be lots of different repos, and that you should be able to basically aggregate between them. And therefore, we should have a scenario where your plugin can be on multiple repos. And therefore, if repo A, be that WordPress.org, goes down, then repo B is there to take over. And you can then add layers of interesting things, like maybe doing some. You can have then aggregators, and you can have effectively search engine versions. So I could set up effectively a repo, which is in fact mirroring other repos, and say, well, I only have these selected plugins in these because these are the plugins that I want my clients to use, or these are the plugins that I vet regularly, and I only push into this after I've done a security review for plugins. So it's a slower process, but you're getting that. There's lots of things we can do in that model, which is fantastic. The problem is we need momentum behind it first. And at the moment, Fair is still a single point of failure because they're primarily relying on Aspire Press, which is a direct mirror of WP.org. Now, over time, we should see more of these getting in place. Pantheon, for example, are now using Fair behind the scenes. So they were sort of like the first big host to announce actually they've wholeheartedly moved over to Fair. But there are lots of other hosts in this area circling around and going, yep, we already manage mirrors. Pretty much, I think every major host now manages a mirror or has a backup mirror nearby. After what they would have seen with WP Engine. So last year, WP Engine users were cut off from WordPress.org as part of a tit for tat thing. And WP Engine had to scramble to get themselves basically a mirror up of the WordPress.org as quickly as possible. And for a period of time, their users couldn't upgrade or update any plugins. Almost certainly every single hosting company that has any interest in the WordPress space at that point went, can we stand up a repo that quickly? And the vast majority of them went, no. So there's been a lot of continuity planning amongst most of the major hosts behind the scenes. They might not publicly announce it, but virtually all of them will have. If they do not have working mirrors already, they know how to get those mirrors up and running very quickly, or have deals with others to get it through. So we're moving towards a world where maybe the single point of failure will not be WordPress.org. But to get there requires a monumental shift in thinking, because most people, when they go to look for a plugin, don't look for a plugin via their WordPress admin interface.
Yeah.
I don't go search in the search bar, right? I go to WordPress.org/plugins and I search in the search bar.
I do worse. I go to Gemini and ask the question. So there you go.
Yeah. Then we'll go to ChatGPT and ask. Well, of course. But then the links will take you to WordPress.org or WordPress.com if their SEO is working. And you go through that process, and then you go through into your admin interface, then you go searching. So we need to break that cycle and get people used to the idea that actually I can trust my WordPress install where I can click through. And to do that, we're going to have to start thinking about, well, actually, is the plugin install and activate section UI any good? The answer is no, it's atrocious.
It's terrible.
I don't think it's actually had any major updates since plugins were first introduced, really. It's had a little bit of UI polish, but there's really been nothing to that section has been modified much. Extra columns for adding automatic updates. I think that might genuinely be it.
Are you using Fair?
Yes, I use Fair on, I think, all my sites. Certainly on... I'm using it on client sites as well. We've got a few hundred sites that I have Fair plugin installed. They're all, as I say, at the moment, they're all pointing to the Aspire Press, though I do have some of the, I stood up my own little repo for distributing of a plugin just to experiment with it. And I am looking at at all the various bits, especially around moderation, because I'd say one of my goals is that for clients who want it, they could opt into effectively Tim's security channel, which would be, these are plugins that are regularly reviewed and you can install without worrying about your risk assessment on them. You can you can say there's a level of trust because I have done the review. That's something long term, but that's something that I've been pondering for a long time, well before FAIR was a thing. And FAIR makes that potentially possible, though there's plenty of technical challenges. It is a project that is, how to put this without sounding mean, a bunch of techies got together in a room to decide the project before anybody went to any users. So it is overly complicated and vastly over-engineered for what they needed to do in that given moment, because they wanted to plan for every possible future. And now we're dealing with the outcome of that, which is that it's all very complicated to do anything with. And there is a very small group of people who have the technical capabilities and knowledge to do it. And that will change, especially through education. There are plenty of people beating the drum for FAIR, so it will change pretty quickly. But right now, installing the plugins easy enough. Though actually finding the install button on the fair.pm website is really difficult. If you go, it's fair.pm is the PM or FM? PM is package manager, is the website, and actually playing find the install plugin is fun. You after a lot of clicking, you will eventually find the GitHub link, which will take you to FAIR 1.00 or 1.01, I think might be out now. You can install that. Once you've installed the plugin, it is already set up to work with AspirePress, which is backed by Fastly as a CDN. Yep. So it's a nice setup. It's a lot quicker than WordPress.org. And it does a bunch of disconnecting of other things and calls to WordPress.org that you might not have thought about. For example, it's got a replacement to Gravitas on there, so that it doesn't make calls back to the Gravitas stuff. It doesn't do. There are a few other things like Serve Happy that are where your WordPress install was regularly making pingbacks to WordPress.org, and you might not have realized it. And all of those have been severed, which is quite nice as well. Which also means it's really good on an intranet environment. So if you're, for example, running, I don't know, WordPress headlessly, so you've got the WordPress instance and you're inside your firewall, and then you've got a static site generated version on the outer side of the firewall, your WordPress instance really won't try and call out. It means that if you've got a local version that has no network connection, you don't get that hang that you used to get in WordPress.org. That was because it was trying to communicate out and it couldn't. Those are all cut out by just installing FAIR.
Yeah. Are we... So I think FAIR's ahead in the right direction. So that's a good thing. I don't think it's perfect. But we got to go through some growing pains to get there. And that brings me to my next question. We're talking about Circle of Trust. Do you trust Cloudflare? There's a good question.
Do I trust Cloudflare? Cloudflare is
I have to ask.
Cloudflare is a very large organization who, in many ways, I see in a very similar trajectory to Google.
Yep.
Google in the early days was the cool kid with a bunch of philosophies and ideas, and literally the tagline, do no evil. And over time, that got slightly corrupted by, let's be honest, corporate greed. Cloudflare is still in the not quite at corporate greed stage, but they also need to eventually make vast quantities of money, because that's how these things have to exist when you're a corporation like that. Cloudflare does some very cool stuff.
Yeah.
But if we think that there's a problem with AWS US East 1 going down, when Cloudflare goes down,
you're done.
There is no point being on the internet during that point. It affects so many sub-services.
Yep.
I think hosting companies in particular love Cloudflare because it provides them with a cheap way to get that CDN experience, which is why it's bundled with so many managed WordPress hosts, because it's nice and cheap for them to do. And in doing so, they're eroding their own capabilities. We are slowly but surely losing the web part of the web. It will soon be 4 or 5 big pillars. And actually, when you were saying, the three big compute powers are AWS, Azure,
Yeah,
and Google Cloud, and you said, oh, maybe Oracle is the fourth. In my head, as you were saying, Oracle is the fourth, I was going to put Cloudflare there as the fourth.
that's fair. I omitted them, but that's really fair. The one cloud people don't realize Cloudflare now sells domains direct. There's some
Mhm.
discussion whether they are cheaper than anybody else. That discussion's been around. My favorite Cloudflare feature is not even the CDN. It's Cloudflare Turnstile. I could not see from a trust standpoint. I trust Cloudflare Turnstile more than I trust Google Capture. I have to tell you. So from a contact form spam problem or form spam problem, I'll run Cloudflare Turnstile every day, all day.
Yeah, I mean, you've got, so out of the captures, you've sort of, if you're using a service, you've really got three big ones, and that's Turnstile, Recapture, which is Google,
Yep.
and H Capture, which is somebody else.
Yes, you're right.
And I can't remember who is that. Azure?
It's
No, I can't
Azure, I
remember who.
think. Yeah.
Okay, but so actually, I don't think I've ever used Turnstile on a production site. That
Hmm.
doesn't mean it's not, that no, just because it's never come up where I've needed it at that moment and the client's been already in the Cloudflare ecosystem. If a client is in the Cloudflare ecosystem, that seems like a no-brainer of a place to go. But if they're not there already, there's a little part of me that goes, do I want to give them the little bit of do I want to give them sweets that leads them
Yeah,
to the dark side that might be the Cloudflare of the future? Am I enabling a problem by
I
leading them
understand.
down this path?
Yeah. I decided that I needed to do that. So I've got some political clients and they get spammed. I mean, you want to see bad contact forms spam. I took one site that was getting nowhere to fly, 300 spam emails a day. Thank you very much, bots. Love you. And I installed Turnstile and I was down to one. Thank you. And
Uh, to
I have
give
to do
Cloudflare a massive shout out because you said political clients, their Galileo project, which is
yeah.
for charities and NGOs which are on the political spectrum, whether that's activism, whether that's political parties.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they will for free give you their equivalent of their enterprise package with all the bells and whistles and unlimited bandwidth to go with that,
Yeah.
which is a huge thing. Having worked with organizations that are constantly under attack because they are political sites and activists, this is something that without Cloudflare Galileo, the cost to host websites would just be too prohibitive. You know,
Yeah.
when we're without it, we would be looking at sort of cloud bills in the 30, 40, $50,000 a month mark, which for small organizations just wouldn't be possible, just purely on bandwidth and DDoS attacking. So
Yeah.
there are some times where I will reach for Cloudflare, and that's a really good example of one of those times.
Yeah. I'll share with you a Cloudflare story. I used to be involved with an organization called the Canadian Police Memorial, or sorry, the Ontario Police Memorial, OPM. And basically, they're an organization that honors fallen police officers who are killed in the line of duty. The ceremony is the first Sunday in May every year. And I've been out of it for about 4 or 5 years, but I used to manage the blog that they would share the live stream feed on. You know what happens when you have a police event running for 2.5 hours and the hackers come out to play? You can guess. And I used to sit by the production truck talking to one of the guys in Toronto Police who worked in media services beside the DeGero box. And for those who don't know, a DeGero box is just a fancy term for a big box that allows live streaming with 5 or 6 cell connections in it that will beam it back to the other DeGero box in police headquarters. And we would stream this, and I can remember one year one of the guys look at me and say, "You don't look happy," and I'd say, "Come look at this." And I had that site on Cloudflare for obvious reasons. And you wanted to see DDoS logs, Tim, to sit and read. And these aren't bots, these are targeted bots because they'd start 15 minutes before the ceremony and they'd end 15 minutes after the ceremony. And I just sit there and watch.
I mean,
And I'm like, look,
DDoS attack is so cheap.
yeah.
You know, the average site, a few years ago, there was some research done where like it would cost take the average site down, it would cost like $15 in traffic. And now it costs, I think it was under $4 for the average site. And that's not because the web hosting has got worse. That's just because the cost, the traffic has got cheaper. And so now they can just throw the same amount of traffic, but at like a third of the price. And that's just keeps going down and down. And that's partly down to the fact that so many sites are hacked.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I never lost a site in all the years I managed it. So it was a thank you. So let's move on. I wanted to jump into a subject we were talking about beyond the circle of trust, WordPress 6.9. And where is 6.9 coming out this year? The first week of December. Again. Now, I think last year, the last WordPress update came out in November, I believe, if I recall right. So that was a little better. But I know there's going to be security updates. And there's also going to be feature updates. And we know those feature updates are going to generate other security problems. I have big issues with putting out a major release more than security fixes in the middle of retail season. Your thoughts?
I mean, they've done this for many years. This is not a new thing. I think there's a couple of things to decompact there. One of which is that my biggest complaint with WordPress's release cycle, and it's one that the team that manage releases know all too well as well, and you know it's not something that they're choosing to do, it's something that they can't not do, is releasing security updates alongside features.
They should be separate.
We really should be in a position where we have security stream and feature stream.
Yes.
Now that is really hard to do with the type of open source software that we've got and the way PHP works, and it's not as simple as it comes across. I get that. But not only are we in a position where we really need this, we've really needed this for years, so that we could subscribe certain clients to the subscription and basically subscribe them to the security updates. Those automatically get applied. That stream only has security updates. All the other updates are stripped out of it, and they're put in the minor feature bump release packages. Other software does this. Most compiled software systems that you will find for major companies do this. If you go into the sort of like Linux system world, package management system, there are plenty of package streams that do this. People like Red Hat do this all the time. Microsoft do this. But it isn't the simplest thing to do. It is interesting, though, that very soon we are going to have an interesting clash, because in the EU, they've got the Cyber Resilience Act.
Yes.
And in the UK is going to have our version, the UK Cyber Security and Resilience Act, is going to come on stream. And as part of that, software vendors, which does include open source people, and potentially, specifically in WordPress context, not to go political, means Matt himself, because of the way everything is set up, will become responsible for certain responsibilities, one of which is that you must maintain separated security updates. So you're going to be, the open source software and companies are going to be required to provide security updates as a separated stream. Now, politicians being politicians, they didn't think this not particularly through. This was just something that somebody told them to write down on a bit of paper. So the practicalities of this is really complicated. But we are in a position where we are going to have legislation affecting a large chunk of sites that says, hey, you have to do this. So again, this is somewhere that I'm looking at FAIR and going, okay, can we do this through something like FAIR? And that would require a humongous buy-in at WordPress.org to do that. But Fair gives us one of those routes where actually a lot of the infrastructure could be put in place for at least the subscription-y type side of things. It doesn't fix somebody has to go and build these WordPress builds out with just security fixes in. So that's one side. The other side is we have so many sites that you've got Black Friday, US Thanksgiving. So it's shifting the release earlier into the end of November. You can see why they don't do that. Because you're just going to have every US retailer going, what are you doing? If they push it too close to Christmas, nobody will update. And that in itself is a problem if we don't get those updates through. So you are in a scenario where you really only have like a week's window. If you're gonna publish in November, December, literally the first week in December, maybe the second is the only 2-week window you have where there will be people in the office in most parts of the world. And there's always a holiday somewhere. Otherwise, you've got no area. So that tight window is really tight. If you then have bugs, you have to push back at all. And a few years ago, I think they pushed out in like the 21st of December. So there's been a really too close to Christmas release.
They put out a security update.
Good.
Yeah, on the 23rd. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing, but I'm okay with a security update being pushed out even in a holiday season, but a feature update probably shouldn't get pushed out, especially one that is going to have a user front end impact. If this was a minor release, which were a bunch of bug fixes, I'd be less concerned. But there are huge swathes of new changes to Gutenberg. There's new changes to templates. There's loads of cool stuff coming. It's a bumper release full of fun stuff in there. Really useful stuff that people will find really useful. But for many agencies, that will require them to be on call to check for compatibility, to make sure everything's pushing through. And yes, they can be using like the beta testing software right now when beta 1 comes out, when the RC releases come out. But inevitably, a client is going to find something that is a bug for them. And it's during these periods where we have these longer delays because someone goes on holiday or just, and everything gets delayed out. And then the perception from the end user and the developers is this was a bad release because it feels like there's more bugs. There aren't more bugs. It's just taking longer to resolve them because people are not there to resolve them. So it feels like a dangerous time to do this release just for that reason. That if I want to have a positive release, I would be very tempted to delay it into January. I don't think outside of some sort of internal metrics for the WordPress core team, delaying to January, I don't think has any negative impact and only positive. But they'll still release in the second week of December.
Yeah. And the big one with this one is there's an admin console change coming, supposedly. So that means they're going to start changing the UI in the back end. And from a usability standpoint, we're in retail season and we're going to change the back end. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I mean, anytime we have a UI change, it requires, for a lot of agencies, that will mean that they have to pass this information on to their clients. I think we can often forget, especially those who are closely involved with the WordPress project, not everybody follows Make. Not everybody listens to your show or something like WP Builds every week, where they're talking about various bits. For most people, the first time they discover these UI changes is when they click the update button. Or probably not even then. It's probably 2 weeks later when they go to do a thing and go, isn't that how it was last time? What's wrong? So we need to be educating people ahead of time. Right now is not a good time to be sending an email to your client saying, hi, by the way, there's going to be some UI changes in WordPress that just what you need to know because it's going to come on stream in like 2 weeks' time. Oh, are you busy? Oh, I'm sorry. you can get back to me in 2 weeks' time when you'll have completely forgotten about this, and then the update happens, and then you're screaming at me because something appears to be broken.
Yep. Yep. The other thing, and I think based on what they have right now, they're doing their best. So we just got to figure it out. And I think it's just an interesting discussion. I know some agencies that will hold that 6.9 update off till January. My problem from my standpoint holding it on is the security fixes in that update. And that's why we need separate streams, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to put those in and hold off all the feature changes till January.
As I explained to people when they sort of like go, but automatic updates, and I like, because I was obviously, I'm a big advocate for well-tested automatic updates. And one of the reasons is that it doesn't matter what the release notes say until we don't have separate security streams, and people lie in readmes.
Yep.
Or at least omit, if they're not absolutely lying, that line where it says miscellaneous bug fixes, for all we know, is a security release. The big famous one is when they introduced the emoji support, which was actually to hide a security fix in WordPress that didn't come out for a couple of years later. So you can't rely on just looking at a changelog and going, well, the word security is not in there, therefore there are no security fixes. This is the case for WordPress core as it is as much for any other a plugin or a theme. So you have to assume every WordPress update, whether it's plugin, theme, or core, is a security release.
Yep.
Until we get to a scenario where we can rely on it via a different streaming method, which we don't have currently. So as far as everybody should be concerned, the next major release of WordPress is a security update, and you should update as soon as possible if it's at all possible.
Yep. No question on that one. So I kind of want to wrap up. We talked about the circle of trust. We talked about 6.9. And I've been having this constant argument with people. You can DIY your website, but if it's making you money, the one thing you could not do is DIY security. And I'm not meaning that and people say to me, oh, well, you work in that space that's self-fulfilling. No, I do not believe the average business owner has the knowledge base to secure their own website in this story. There's no way, no how, nowhere with what's going on out there. Am I wrong, right, in between? Go.
He's slightly in between, I think. But
okay.
The problem with we both work in security. The problem with selling security is it does sound an awful lot like racketeering.
Yes,
it'd be a shame if your house burnt down, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
it's really hard not to sound like that when you're selling in security to somebody. There is no substitute for knowledge and experience and understanding what's going on, but it's a two-way thing.
I agree.
It needs buy-in by stakeholders, and stakeholders who are also invested in security. Security is everybody's responsibility. It's not just the security consultant who turns up. It's not the plugin vendor's responsibility. It's everybody's, including the business owners. And we combine somebody who has some specialist security knowledge with somebody who knows the website in and out and knows the business inside and out. You can put yourself in a really good position. And ultimately, it doesn't cost that much in the grand scheme of things. Having someone review your website, yes, it is thousands of dollars, but it isn't. That's worth it if it stops an incident and that takes out your website for a week if you're an e-commerce site. It's worth it, even if it's a brochureware site, to have somebody just come through and review how things are set up. It is worth it, even if you have a fully trained dev team, to have just a third-party person come along and say, hi, did you know that there's a thing called backup.zip just lying around in the root folder, right? That's got your entire
thank you very much. I'll do a restore backup.zip too now.
Yeah. So that's the sort of thing that every dev team at some point has done, because you in the moment you don't think about it and you rushed off your feet. And that's the thing. Security is often slightly pushed to one side because it is never somebody's primary focus. And the downside of me going around saying it's everybody's responsibility is that equates to it's nobody's responsibility. So by bringing somebody in to help you with your security, it will make it everyone's responsibility because nobody wants to be that point of failure inside your business. And so if you do want your house to stay up and not be burnt down, you should definitely hire a security specialist.
So true.
Racketeering.
Tim, as always, this is like amazing conversation. I hope people take some of this to heart. What are you working on these days?
Oh, well, funnily enough, I do security reviews.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
Yeah. At the moment, I have two different bits and pieces. So I do WordPress security reviews, both for manual code reviews for plugins and things, but I also do secure site reviews, looking at whole sites. And I can come and sit down and have those conversations with you. I can go through your site and see how it's looking, give you recommendation and advice, and a nice shiny report. I also do like health certificates for your insurance company. So if you have cyber insurance and you know that pesky box that they made you tick that said, have you ever recently done a pen test? And you clearly ticked yes. And now I'm wondering what a pen test is. Well, you can come and talk to me about that.
Yeah. And how did they get a hold of you, Tim?
The best place is always my website. So that's timnash.co.uk. And you can also email me at hello@timnash.co.uk.
Thanks, Tim. Have yourself an amazing day, my friend. Be well.
And you too.
Always. This podcast has been brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital marketing concierge to help the business owner put all his pieces together, whether it's email marketing, WordPress security, WordPress design and development, PPC, and more. Text Stunning Digital Marketing for all your digital marketing needs today. Very special thank you to Tim Nash for joining me on this edition of the SDM. The SDM Show is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much every day. My mother, Ann Cairns, who's still doing really well and is an inspiration. And of course, Tiz Maroney. And Tiz, I know I've said it, but thank you so much for all the inspiration you give me every day.